you. I'm just look back at where we sit today, and I think I'd direct my first question to Mr. Mitchell, but it could go to anybody, and it's this, that as I roll this thing back and I look at American history, there was a time in American history when you had to be a male property owner in order to vote. The reason for that was because they wanted the people that voted, that set the public policy, that decided on the taxes and the spending, to have some skin in the game. Now we have data out there that shows that 47% of American households don't pay taxes, 51% of American wage owners don't have an income tax liability, and it's pretty clear that there are a lot of people that aren't in the workforce at all. In fact, of our unemployment numbers that run in the 13 or 14 million category, when you go to the Department of Labor statistics and look at that data, you can add up those that are simply not in the workforce of different age groups, but in working age, add that number to the number of those who are on unemployment, and you come up with a number that it was just a few months ago 80 million Americans. Just as of less than a month ago, that number went over 100 million Americans that aren't working. Now, I don't think they're either paying taxes, but many of them are voting. And when they vote for more government benefits, because that's what comes into their mailbox or into their debit card.
Could I ask the distinguished gentleman a question?
Set the stage for the question just fine, Mr. Ranking Member, who has never done this in his entire career. And so I would direct my question then to Mr. Mitchell and ask, do you believe that a balanced budget amendment is a means by which it can offset the disadvantage that the workers, the taxpayers, those who actually fund this government have? Does a balanced budget help set some of that back in order that was sought to be put in order when it was property owners that voted?
Yeah, so I mean the basic problem here is one of externalities. So this is a problem that's familiar to environmental economists. If a factory is allowed to, in the process of making a product for consumers, is allowed to bilge smoke into the air, that's an externality, and they will make too much of the product unless it's internalized. So here, what's happening is that this current generation is allowed to externalize the cost of government onto the next generation. The median voter, as I said before, the cost of reform, the cost of avoiding this kind of economic contraction that we're staring at, those are going to be borne by people like me, the median voter. But the costs of the status quo are going to be borne by my daughter. She cannot vote. And until we can internalize that externality, I think we're going to continue to make the wrong choice, because none of you have the incentive to make the right choice. It's not your fault. You are all good people. You're servants of the public, and you're listening to what your constituents and your median voters are saying, and the incentives that they offer you are not right.
That's a very cerebral answer, and I agree with it. I would just take us to another step along this way, and that would be, as I remember now, this is not a proposal, this is a historical observation of property owners only voting. What if that were transferred into a society like today, and it were taxpayers that were voting? What do you expect, Mr. Mitchell, would be the result of the public policy that would emanate from such a thing?
Well, I think that when more people have skin in the game, and when people have to pay for the services that they consume, they tend to consume fewer services.
And then I'll take you to another step of this, and that's something that I've been for the national sales tax for a long time, because everybody becomes a taxpayer. And it's another means to get everybody with skin in the game, and every little boy that grows up in America would have to put a couple dimes up on the counter to buy their Skittles, or every little girl that bought her Barbie doll clothes would have to do the same. And have you contemplated what that might do to the body politic here in American culture, and what the results might be if everybody were paying taxes on a national sales tax?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's sort of the same thing, is that, again, when everybody pays, I think when you internalize both the costs and the benefits, you'd expect people to consume less. There'd be probably smaller government. I would add a note of caution on something like a national sales tax. In my view, if step one isn't repeal of the 16th Amendment, you're likely to get two taxes.
And I reclaim my time, and I'm thanking the gentleman for his comment and adding my comment to this, that I believe the momentum to repeal the 16th Amendment would come directly out of the passage of the fair tax. I don't think that people would ever reestablish an IRS. Thanks very much. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask an additional minute for my dear friend, Mr. King?
Without objection, the gentleman from Iowa is recognized for an additional minute.
Could I just ask the previous speaker, as a successful businessman himself,
Would the
did he
gentleman
ever
from Michigan care that I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman from Michigan?
Yes, I'd care.
I'd be
I
I'd yield to
appreciate
the
it.
gentleman from Michigan then, even without a request.
Did you ever have to borrow money as a successful businessman yourself?
Is that directed at me and I reclaim my time? I'd say certainly yes. And I had to pay it back with interest, 22% at one point in my life. Shall we open up that can of worms?
Well, it's not a can of worms. It's
is for
just
me.
real life. The governments have to do that too, Mr. King.
I think the point that was made that's the most significant with regard to the witness testimony was that we don't think that Governor Thornburg doesn't believe that many states would want to repeal their balanced budget amendment requirement. I know of no state that's done so, and I know of no state that's initiated that. I think that tells you they like having the comfort of having to live within a balanced budget. And I'd like to see this country have the comfort of living within a balanced budget. We
Sure.
can balance this.
It's okay for
anytime
you to
in the past.
borrow, but it's not okay for governors to borrow.
It doesn't make me a hypocrite. It makes me a businessman. And the United States of America prints the money, sets the policy for the country, and we will be in perpetual debt, and we will be Greece if we don't get this under control. This Congress does not have the will to do so. We need to ask the American people to impose that upon us, and I'm be grateful for the day that comes that we can see it become.
Look,
part of our Constitution.
if you'd impose
I
it
would,
on little kids, I know you'd
I would
impose it on the
recognize
government.
that the time has expired, and I'll take care of my little kids, and I hope you take care of yours too, Mr. Conyers. I yield back.
The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Scott's recognized.